Unsatisfaction. Two cold, ruthless words delivered in the exact tone you'd expect from the richest man in the world when he's not speaking from the heart but from strategy. For Lauren Sanchez, this wasn't just rejection, it was a sentence that would echo through every part of her life. Once celebrated as the bride of a billion-dollar dream, how did she go from fairy tale to tragedy in just 30 days? How did a royal-style wedding set against the romantic canals of Venice become the epicenter of a global scandal? This is a story drenched in love loyal to Monde, the brutal mind games of the elite. And before we dive deeper, like this video and subscribe to the channel. Best, what you're about to witness isn't a fantasy from some glossy magazine. It's a royal life story of betrayal sealed in contracts, legal warfare launched with precision, and a revenge plan so calculated in Hollywood screenwriters would hesitate to script it. The wedding of Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sanchez was no ordinary affair. Dubbed the most royal wedding of the decade, it featured chandeliers flown in from Paris, custom gowns by world-class designers, and camera angles that felt more like a movie than a marriage. Every guest was placed like a chess piece, every moment choreographed like a scene from a blockbuster. But beneath that flawless exterior, something very different was happening. According to insiders, smiles were rehearsed, the motions carefully staged, and the vows weren't just about love. They were the foundation of future legal warfare. It wasn't just a prenup, it was a blueprint for control. A document forged not to share wealth, but to protect an empire, even if it meant erasing Lauren piece by piece. And the warning signs, they were planted long before a single guest stepped onto a gondola in Venice. Insiders now confirm that while the world obsessed over wedding dresses and guest lists, a team of America's most ruthless attorneys was drafting what one expert called a legal fortress. Not 10 pages, not 50, but over 200 pages of ultra-restrictive conditions crafted with military precision. This wasn't about splitting assets, it was a power shield laced with clauses designed to monitor silence and control. From strict behavioral rules to digital gag orders, Lauren's life was about to be governed like a high-stakes corporate acquisition. One legal analyst who reviewed a portion of it said, "I've seen billion-dollar mergers with fewer strings attached. This wasn't a prenup. This was a contract for ownership, and still Lauren signed it." Why? Because when you're standing at the altar of the richest man in the world, with headlines pre-written and paparazzi circling like hawks, you either comply or walk away from the fantasy. No time to review, no legal backup. Just a ticking clock. And an ultimatum. Sign or the fairy tale ends. And sign she did, unknowingly locking herself into a role she would later regret. Fast forward a few weeks, and the very document that promised protection became a legal time bomb. Sources say Bezos' inner circle had been collecting receipts, screenshots, public appearances, even harmless interviews. Every magazine cover, every Instagram post, every deal Lauren discussed, quietly logged, monitored, stored, until the day came when that file was opened. And when it hit, it was a silent missile. The fallout devastating. Lauren insiders say never saw it coming. She thought the power couple glow would shield her. She believed the ring meant partnership. But what she didn't realize was that Bezos had prepared for this downfall long before she ever said "I do." It wasn't a scandal, it was a full-scale storm. Not whispers, but shockwaves. Lawsuits filed coast to coast. Bank accounts frozen. Cease and desist letters delivered like threats to every corner of Lauren's professional world. Event invites vanished. Brand deals collapsed. In less than a week, she went from the front row of billionaire society to total isolation, a social ghost. A woman being surgically erased from the narrative she once dominated. And then came the final blow. Two words delivered in that same boardroom tone. Bezos uses to cut failing departments. Not screamed. Not emotional, just clinical, too late to. Words that didn't just end a marriage, they crushed a legacy, a dream, a media-crafted image of love and power. Lauren tried to claw her way back. She called, she texted. She showed up unannounced, reportedly pleading at the door of his private office. But the response never changed. It was over. Not a breakup, an execution. One former Amazon legal advisor put it best. This wasn't a divorce, it was liquidation. Bezos didn't just freeze her accounts, he dismantled her future. Everything the marriage had unlocked: access, influence, visibility, gone in. A calculated sweep. But the real kill switch, it was buried in the fine print of that infamous prenup. the one she signed under public pressure and private fear. Legal insiders now call it the $5 billion boomerang, a clause so savage it's become legendary in corporate law circles. It states, if Lauren leveraged the marriage for media branding or influence without his written consent, her financial rights would vanish on the spot. And that's exactly what's happening. Every interview, every designer photo shoot, every cover story she did as Mrs. Bezos is now being used against her in court. She built a platform and unknowingly built her own legal tomb. She nailed her own coffin shut, one lawyer said, and Jeff, he just locked it. What makes this entire saga even more disturbing is the possibility that the wedding itself wasn't a celebration, it was the first move in a trap. While guests toasted champagne and posed for photos, insiders now say the entire event was engineered like a covert operation. Cameras weren't just snapping memories, they were watching, listening, cataloging. Every hug, every whisper, every interaction recorded, analyzed, filed. Photographers acted more like intelligence agents than artists. One guest, speaking anonymously months later, admitted, "I didn't attend a wedding. I unknowingly walked into surveillance," which raises the real question, why would the richest man alive orchestrate such an elaborate ceremony only to bring down his bride weeks later? Sources close to the couple point to a betrayal not just romantic but strategic. Alleged secrets, quiet infidelities. Moves Lauren made that in Bezos' world crossed boundaries more sacred than love, loyalty, and silence. In the billionaire elite, those are currencies more valuable than gold. And when those codes were broken, Bezos didn't lash out. He waited, strategized. Former friends of Lauren now describe the fallout as a nuclear-level implosion. Reputations, burned partnerships worth billions dissolved, and once open doors slammed shut across Hollywood, Silicon Valley, and DC. The betrayal wasn't just personal. It was institutional. And in this elite stratosphere, punishment isn't served with rage, it's delivered with surgical erasure. Lauren wasn't just divorced, she was removed. Wiped from the equation, excommunicated, and while all this unfolded in the press, Jeff Bezos remained eerily composed, steady, unshaken, like a man watching a chess game end, exactly as he'd predicted. Because maybe it was... Sources claim Bezos deliberately allowed Lauren to violate terms of the Prenup, baiting her with visibility, freedom, influence. And while she thought she was winning, he was documenting, preparing, waiting, until the exact moment when every wrong move could be turned into a weapon. By the time Lauren realized the truth, the setup, the silence, the surveillance, the trap had already closed. By the time she grasped the full scope of what had happened, every door had slammed shut, her assets frozen, her lawyers outnumbered, her reputation rapidly sinking under the weight of headlines and silence. This wasn't just the end of a marriage, it was the collapse of an entire identity. And the man who once whispered promises of forever looked her dead in the eyes and ended everything with 2 words. Too late. But here's the terrifying truth: that moment wasn't the end. It was merely the opening move in a far more sinister game. Because behind those 2 words lies a labyrinth of secrets, legal warfare, and calculated moves that expose how real power functions. Not just in Silicon Valley or Hollywood, but in the hidden chambers of global elite relationships. To decode what happened after that final conversation, we have to return to the one document that made it all possible: the Prenup. Now regarded in legal circles as a modern-day curse, a manuscript so dense, so deliberately engineered that even legal circles as a modern-day curse, a manuscript so dense, so deliberately engineered, so dense, so deliberately engineered that even seasoned attorneys speak of it with caution. This wasn't just legal protection, it was a blueprint for obliteration. A roadmap that could, with the flip of a clause, turn a love story into a lawsuit. And the man who built it, the same man who once architected the global rise of Amazon. According to insiders, this document wasn't drafted in weeks. It took nearly a year. Dozens of lawyers. Endless reviews. Each sentence poured over with the intensity of a missile launch protocol. Every comma mattered. Every hypothetical betrayal, even ones that hadn't yet occurred, accounted for. It wasn't just legal prep, it was war strategy. And Lauren, she didn't know she'd just walked onto a battlefield. At the core of that prenup were what insiders now call trigger acts, behaviors that, if committed, would instantly erase her financial standing. It didn't take scandal, just a photo, a quote, a social media post hinting that she'd gained from the marriage. One clause reportedly stated that even a magazine cover without written consent could trigger penalties worth billions. One attorney said the terms didn't resemble a marriage contract at all, but a corporate non-compete agreement in disguise. Imagine entering a relationship where your Instagram caption could become evidence in court. That's the world she was living in, and she didn't even know it. And yet that was the world Lauren suddenly found herself trapped in. Why would anyone alone a woman with influence and intelligence sacred to such suffocating terms? The answer, as always, is timing. According to sources close to the inner circle, the agreement wasn't delivered with months to spare. It was dropped like a legal bomb just days before the wedding at her most vulnerable moment. The media had already drafted the fairy tale headlines. Gowns worth hundreds of thousands had arrived from Europe. A-list guests were already en route to Venice, and the eyes of the world were locked onto the ceremony. And then, like a switchblade, she was told, sign this or it's over. No independent counsel. No time for negotiation, no real choice. Under immense pressure, Lauren signed. And just like that, the billionaire playbook was activated. Because the document was never just about wealth, it was about domination. Domination over the story, the spotlight, the future. And when Bezos decided the relationship had reached its expiration date, that control became total. Her legal team was reportedly blindsided by the speed of the takedown. Bank accounts were frozen within hours. Private contracts dissolved. Business ventures halted mid-deal. The pace was described by one attorney as brutal, like flipping a kill switch at a tech firm. In fact, one legal strategist called it a precision assault, so fast, so complete, there wasn't even time to mount a counterattack. And at the center of it all, the most feared clause in the agreement, still whispered in legal circles as the $5 billion boomerang. It gave Bezos the right to revoke every dime of financial access if Lauren engaged in any public branding without his written approval. No proof of intent needed, just action. Appear on a magazine cover, that's a strike. Post an inspirational quote on Instagram, another strike. Behind the scenes, a dossier was growing. Every photo shoot, every quote, every glamour-filled appearance. All logged, all ready to be weaponized. Lauren believed she was building her legacy, but in truth she was unknowingly compiling a legal case against herself. Sources say the realization hit her like a tidal wave. She thought the marriage would elevate her forever. Instead, every step she took toward the spotlight was another step onto a trap she couldn't see. It was like watching someone climb a golden ladder, one lawyer said, only to find out it was bolted to a trapdoor. But what pushed Bezos to finally pull the trigger, it wasn't a tweet or a tabloid headline. It was something colder, whispers of betrayal behind closed doors. It started as whispers, subtle, quiet, but deadly. Whispers that tore through the tight fabric of trust and loyalty that holds the billionaire class together. Insiders now reveal that what triggered the final collapse wasn't a tabloid scandal or a headline, it was the leak of private conversations, secrets shared in confidence and then somehow exposed. Loyalty had been broken, not just in romance, but in a world where friendship is strategic and trust is a billion-dollar asset. For years, Bezos and Lauren had moved through elite circles where every dinner, every party, every yacht trip wasn't just for fun, it was business. These weren't casual friendships. They were silent partnerships, political pacts, venture deals, quiet alliances built on mutual silence and protection. When Lauren crossed that unspoken boundary, it wasn't just Jeff Bezos she betrayed, it was the entire machine. And once that machine turned on her, there was nowhere to run. Overnight, she was socially erased. Invitations vanished. Brands distanced themselves. Calls were left unanswered. Friends who once toasted her as a rising queen of the elite vanished like smoke. As one Hollywood executive said bluntly yesterday, she was royalty. Today she's invisible, and in this rarefied world, invisibility is the worst fate of all. What makes this unraveling so chilling is how Bezos handled it, not with anger, not with emotion, but with the cold precision of a general executing a long-anticipated operation. He didn't yell. He didn't warn. He simply triggered a plan that sources say had been years in the making. He reportedly allowed Lauren to break the rules, to step over the lines, documenting every mistake like a chess grandmaster, letting the game unfold, not reacting but setting the trap. And when she finally stepped where he needed her to, he made the final move, looked her in the eyes, spoke two words. Too late for Lauren. This wasn't just heartbreak. It was deletion. Her businesses imploded. Her public image shattered. Her access to power was revoked. Even her Instagram became a liability. Screenshots turned into legal ammunition in a case she had no way to fight. And worse still, she wasn't just caged by contracts, she was walled in by silence. A social exile with no exit. And here lies the most unsettling question of all. Was this ever about love, or was it always a meticulously crafted illusion, a game of influence, control, and optics, a game Lauren believed she could master, without realizing the rules were written long before she ever stepped onto the board? That breathtaking wedding in Venice might not have been a celebration at all, but the opening move in a long, silent strategy. Every detail from the imported chandeliers to the curated guest list doubled as part of a legal and psychological framework designed for one outcome: total control. Now, insiders who helped organize the event admit there were strange instructions. Photographers were asked not just to capture beauty but to record interactions. Seating charts were drawn like battlefield maps. Notes were kept. Conversations logged. One guest later admitted, "I thought I was attending a dream. But now I realize I was inside an evidence folder, and so the walls closed in." Lauren pushed back phone calls, messages, personal pleas. But each attempt was blocked. The legal team had already mapped every move. Every door was locked before she even reached it. What she faced wasn't just a divorce, it was a full system shutdown. Bezos, the man who once built an empire from a garage, now used that same ruthless discipline to dismantle a woman's life, not with anger but with silence and speed. It wasn't just a breakup, it was a message, a warning. Cross me and I won't just walk away. I will erase you. In the eerie quiet that followed those two devastating words, "too late," the illusion shattered. The fairy tale was just a screenplay. The love story was strategy. And the echo of that collapse spread beyond the marble halls of Venice. It spilled into Hollywood, slipped into Washington, and haunted every cocktail party that once embraced Lauren Sanchez as one of their own. Because in this elite world, your name isn't just a name, it's leverage. And once that's gone, so is everything. And when that social currency crumbled, everything else quickly followed. Invitations stopped arriving. Red carpet premieres that once clamored for her suddenly had no place for her name. Gala guest lists mysteriously erased her presence. Designers who once vied to dress her in million-dollar gowns now closed their doors. PR teams that once painted her as the glamorous counterpart to Bezos quietly stopped returning calls. Word spread quietly, and the highest circles her association had become toxic, a risk no one wanted to take, caught in a storm controlled by the richest man alive. This marked the start of a new kind of battle: psychological warfare. This wasn't just a legal assault, it was a campaign to erase her from society. Close sources say Bezos never raised his voice, never threatened openly. Instead, his silence became his sharpest weapon. Every whisper questioning Lauren's loyalty, every hint she broke in trust, every rumor of betrayal echoed and grew louder in elite networks where perception shapes reality and reality punishes mercilessly. She didn't just lose wealth, she lost her standing. And in the world of Hollywood, standing is everything. The cruelty was in the subtlety. No public drama, no headlines. Just absence where once there was presence, silence replacing the noise, exclusion creeping in where she was once embraced. Lauren told a close friend it felt like drowning in plain sight, visible to the world but suffocating as doors slammed shut one after another. Lawyers poring over the prenup say the mercilessness wasn't accidental, it was built into the contracts. The clauses didn't just cut her finances, they isolated her completely. They forbade alliances with media, limited her independent projects, even restricted her from telling her own story. The prenup wasn't just protection, it was a gag order in disguise. One attorney put it simply, she was silenced before she even had a chance to speak. The weeks that followed, Lauren tried desperately to rally support within Hollywood's elite circles. But those alliances had already been recalibrated loyally. Here's a currency measured in billions, and the price was too steep. Directors, producers, moguls who once raised glasses to her under city lights now vanished with the cold detachment of a declined credit card. The choice was stark: side with Bezos and stay in the inner sanctum, or back Lauren and risk total exile. No one was willing to pay that price. What made this blow even more precise was the psychological strategy behind it. Bezos didn't seek merely a split, he demanded a spectacle. A warning etched into the social DNA of the ultra-wealthy. Betrayal carries a price far heavier than any courtroom judgment. So every unanswered call, every vanished invitation, every headline that erased her name became pieces of a larger designat. Just punishment, but obliteration. Yet beneath this ruthless play lies another trethone that exposes the brittle nature of power itself. By building this cage around Lauren, Bezos inadvertently revealed the hidden gears of his empire. Influence didn't flow through official channels, but through unseen switches, favors granted, whispered calls, covert messages sent through trusted gatekeepers. And now those invisible levers were laid bare. Exposure breeds danger. What was once silent influence now resembled domination. And domination, when revealed, looks very much like tyranny. For Lauren, the psychological weight was crushing. Insiders say she would fixate on her phone, waiting for messages that never arrived. She'd draft responses to stories that painted her as reckless or disloyal, only to erase them, knowing any word could be weaponized. She was imprisoned by silence so loud it shattered her. But Hollywood adores a comeback. Rumors began swirling that Lauren was preparing her own counterattack, in court where the contract shackled her, but in narrative. Because in Tinsel Town, storytelling is the ultimate power dot, and when the courtroom doors closed, Lauren turned to the court of public opinion. A trusted confidant revealed she had quietly begun meeting with writers, producers, and journalists, weighing her last chance to reclaim her narrative. Not as a schemer, but as a survivor fighting back. The irony was stark. The very media machine that once celebrated her now held the key to her possible redemption. Yet the looming shadow of the contract remained ruthless. Any unauthorized move to profit from her story could unleash new penalties, tighter traps. One false step, and she risked vanishing not just from the public eye, but from existence altogether. This chapter of her saga echoes a harsher reality in celebrity high society. Loyalty is fragile, love is currency, and betrayal is unforgivable. Lauren entered the scene believing she was securing it forever. Instead, she was merely a pawn, a character in a script penned by unseen hands. Her heartbreak was systemic, clashing with a power structure that brooked no mercy. And the consequences rippled beyond her alone. Observers, lawyers, influencers, and power players watched closely, took heed. They fortified their own contracts, sharpened their alliances, reminded themselves that crossing the wrong titan means more than losing wealth, it means losing your place altogether. Lauren's silence morphed into a whispered warning, a whispered caution repeated behind the velvet curtains of Malibu and Monaco soirees. And here lies the haunting truth. Too late was never just a personal verdict. It was a cultural reckoning, the final curtain on the illusion that love could shield anyone. In the ruthless realm of billionaires, it served as a chilling reminder. Behind every smile lurked strategy, every hug masked calculation, and every contract was just the opening scene of a looming tragedy. As the dust settled over Venice and the phrase "too late" faded into a distant echo, eyes turned to the intricate details of that prenup, hidden clauses whispered about in elite legal circles dubbed traps, each one crafted not merely to shield fortune but to foresee and punish betrayal. Lawyers admitted they had never encountered such ruthless precision. Clauses that anticipated scenarios years down the line. Clauses treating love as liability, companionship as risk management. Insiders confirmed there were at least 7 such snares buried deep within the thick legal tome, each deadlier than the last. The first, known as the Silence Clause, barred Lauren from authoring, publishing, or producing any memoir, article, or film about their relationship without express permission. Breach meant not only losing claims but crushing financial penalties, capable of wiping out her assets. The second, the Image Clause, forbade using the marriage as leverage for branding, where every public appearance, endorsement, or photo shoot could be weaponized against her. The third, the Circle Clause, severed her ties, business or personal, with anyone deemed a rival, a list so broad it effectively cut her off from entire networks. The fourth, the Influence Clause, stopped her from political fundraising or advocacy that might suggest wielding marital influence. The fifth, the Inheritance Clause, tightly controlled asset transfers under strict oversight. And the sixth, the Confidentiality Clause, barred her from revealing any internal business discussion secrets sealed in ink. And then there was the seventh and deadliest clause, the Boomerang Clause. It instantly stripped her of all rights the moment she violated any of the others, turning even a single misstep into a catastrophic cascade of losses. It was a merciless iron web with no exit, a legal labyrinth where every path ended in ruin. When people looked back at that Venetian wedding, it became clear it was never just a celebration, it was a carefully crafted evidentiary stage. The photographs, guest lists, and opulent details all doubled as proof of her compliance with the image clauses. That fairy tale was a legal set piece where every laugh, every dance, every kiss beneath the chandeliers could be recast as contractual performance. Even the romantic gondola rides appeared less like genuine affection and more like staged exhibits for a dossier. The repercussions didn't stop with Lauren or Hollywood, they rippled into politics, business, and media. Every powerful player watching learned the hard lesson. Politicians shored up alliances, journalists rewrote their angles, and moguls recalibrated their trust. A Washington strategist described it less as a divorce and more as a geopolitical signal, revealing how personal lives at that level intertwine with global power plays. It wasn't about love anymore, it was about controlling narrative access and influence. Yet amid this heavy silence, one question lingered. Could Lauren orchestrate a comeback Hollywood? Love's a redemption arc, but hers would be the tough pestilence. By contract, abandoned by networks and crushed by an empire that refused to loosen its grip. Still, whispers floated of quiet strategies. A low-profile return through humanitarian work, media alliances, daring enough to align, or legal battles on coercion grounds. Experts say her odds are slim, but in Hollywood, even slim chances can spark hope. As this story draws to a close, one truth shines above all else. Too late was never just a phrase whispered to Lauren Sanchez. It is a warning to anyone who steps into the orbit of immense power. Too late to realize the rules were scripted long before you arrived. Too late to see that love itself can be weaponized. Too late to understand that every smile may mask a strategy. Every embrace conceal a contract. The saga of Bezos and Sanchez is far more than a scandal, it's a modern parable, a cautionary tragedy, revealing how in the world of the ultra-wealthy the line between love and litigation is thinner than a sheet of paper. And sometimes that paper is a contract. Now the curtain falls. The fairy tale is over. The gondolas have drifted away, chandeliers are dark, and the palace stands empty. Yet the story remains etched into the annals of Hollywood and high society. Warning, a lesson, a spectacle. Too late is not just the end of one romance, it's the start of a cautionary tale for a generation. And as the world watches, the silence left behind speaks louder than any vow ever spoken. At its core, Hollywood isn't just about glamour and red carpets. It's about power, secrets, and scandals hidden in the shadows. The truth demands its place in the spotlight. Whether courtroom drama, personal chaos, or behind-the-scenes deals, one thing is certain: this story is far from over. And we'll be here watching, digging, and uncovering what others try to bury.